Shadows Literary License Podcast episodes. Ben Stokes here, exploring all things Collinsport, Maine, and following the likes of the Collins family, and the friends and foes, with your co-hosts, Tom Diamond, Jesse Fultz, Mickey Ray, and Keith Chalgo, Collins family, story about blood relations, literally.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and we're discussing Dark Shadows Week, where we're discussing episodes 549 to 570. And before we get started, let's find out who's with us. First of all, we got Tom Diamond with us. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Keith, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here again. Hope you're all doing well, and everybody here is no longer wearing masks. It's a great thing to wake up from the COVID scare.
And we also have Jesse Fultz coming back from the dead. Hello, Jesse. How are you?
I'm still trying to revive myself. It's been a long time.
And we have Mickey Ray with us, like always.
Hi, everybody.
And myself, Keith Chalgo. And before we get started, let's find out what we've been up to. Starting with Jesse, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke to you, which was 2 weeks ago when we did Bewitched? So what have you been up to in the last 2 weeks?
I don't remember if I was officially done with school then, but I definitely am now. Finished with all A's, so that's always awesome. And just working on some summer projects, going to the beach, and all that good stuff. But, you know, like typical vampires, they don't like the sun, so I have to lather myself up with sunscreen. So that's always fun.
And what about yourself, Tom? What have you been up to since last time we spoke to you, which was about a month ago?
Well, the good news is that my fiance and I have set a nuptial date.
Time.
Well,
Nothing like letting a plague get in between it all.
Well, of course. Well, that's what happened. Otherwise, it would have been last year. But December 24th, which is my birthday, happens to be on a Friday, and I was born on the Friday, way back when. So we'll be going to Disney World for the nuptials with a very small entourage.
That is such a cool idea.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am, and we'll honeymoon there, and and that'll be nice. And my friend is giving me away as best man, and she's got a brother and a fiance, and he's giving her away, and we're giving each other away, I guess. And so that plus I'm starting my adjunct professor job in the fall. And one of the universities is moving forward with another one. I got to do a demo class next week.
Cool.
That's for Kaiser University in Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
Wow. And it's an online job. So we'll see what happens with that. And that'll be a nice experience. And trying to get back into the workforce online otherwise. So I've got my work cut out for me with my PhD. So I'm doing well, and can't wait to get back into the Dark Shadows world for a couple of hours.
Cool.
Let's see. What are we watching? The Royal. I don't know if you remember, if you ever watch that show, Keith, and then it's not a horror thing, but it's more of a British hospital show that was on in the 1990s, which lasted for 8 seasons, which I think is really, really cool. And that was, and then The Royal Today was the sequel to that. And I'm looking forward to looking at some other stuff. I've been pretty busy. But that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing recently. I'm catching a recent Woody Allen movie called Coney Island, which brings me back to my Coney Island summers when I was growing up. Right. And he filmed that in Coney Island. It came out in 2018, and now it's out in Amazon Prime.
And what about yourself, Vix?
Oh, not a whole lot. Keep trying to put my new roof on, but it won't stop raining here in Texas. It's been 2 weeks now, and I still got shingle and all kinds of stuff sitting in my driveway. But not a whole lot.
It's raining outside, and there's a drip inside.
That's right. It doesn't mean and then there's you. But no, we've just been getting Asher back in the saddle with racing, and we got some state championships coming up and stuff like that. And we're going to stick to the local. We're not going to go all over the place this year. And I'm making plans to go home to Keith's favorite hometown in July, because I haven't seen my mom in a year and a half because of all this pandemic stuff. So it's a well overdue visit.
Yeah.
And as far as watching stuff, I watched Army of the Dead. I was waiting for that on Netflix. I don't think we talked about it the last time.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it. I loved it. Actually.
I liked it, actually.
I love the soundtrack as well. I just love the soundtrack. So I'm probably going to download that when I get first chance I get. I thought it was great.
You can actually get the soundtrack on Spotify.
Spotify, yeah. But it was excellent. I thought it was anyway.
Awesome.
I love the new breed of zombie.
I was just saying that
Go ahead.
Oh, that's cool. I have been wanting to watch that. Where did you see it? Was it HBO Max
Netflix.
Or something?
It's on Netflix.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot it was a Netflix special. Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you'll like the females, the new zombies. They're kind of smart. They're kind of smart, and they're just, I don't know, they're like totally rogue zombies. I mean, it was different. I liked it a lot.
Was it better than World War Z?
I just can't get into World War Z for some reason. I started watching it, and then I stopped watching it when they were trying to get him to the specific town, whatever, because he was going to be able to save people with his blood. And after that, I stopped watching. I have no idea why I stopped watching.
I didn't play the computer game over the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I started watching this little, I don't know, it's a Swiss or whatever. It's called Ragnarok. And I don't know why I love it. It's on Prime, I think, or is it Netflix? Netflix. I was glad to see they did a second season. It's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but I really like the new actors, and it's all fresh and new, and that's probably why I like it. And it's got some substance to it. So I started season 2 yesterday. And Tubi's really actually been kicking Netflix's butt as far as having all kinds of stuff on it. Netflix,
it's true.
Tubi's got everything. But I was all excited because they put all the seasons of Xena, Warrior Princess on. It's like, yes, Xena's back.
Wait, that's on Tubi now?
It's on Tubi. It's like Love Xena.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. On Tubi, Xena?
Yeah.
I love that vampire episode with Gabrielle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. I just love Xena Warrior Princess, and I don't know why. I think it got really squirrely at the end when they did all the Archangel stuff and all that crazy stuff. But the first 4 seasons, hands down, were excellent. But that's just how things go. I love Lucy Lawless. She's just a badass, no matter what.
The name of that vampire episode was "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Fun, was it? You got a good memory.
I thought that was great. No, I just thought that was great, and of course that was really. Did they have the Hercules thing on yet?
Hercules Legendary Adventures, yeah, those are on too. I was really excited.
On Tubi also? Is that on Tubi?
Yeah, I've seen that show.
Oh boy, I got to catch up on that.
Tubi's got a lot. They do not cut their anything, and they actually had that Serbian film on Tubi where I didn't think it'd be anywhere to be found in the United States, but they have it. So dare if you must to be traumatized. I was traumatized. That's all I got to say. But other than that, we're just doing the summer thing. My gardens, my tomatoes are growing, but we've had so much rain. I can't get out there and weed anything. So.
Now, is everybody getting out again post-COVID? Are the restaurants open where you are, Vicky?
We've been open for a long time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Lots of people getting their shots.
Well, now, over 50% from what I understand, and that is pretty. But and I think they're going to have boosters, but it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I think we'll come out of it okay.
Now we will.
Keep the faith, America.
Absolutely. It's a much better year now.
It will be.
Well, myself, what I've been doing, I got the newsletter out, so that's out for our next month, which is a salute to women everywhere. So,
and it was really good. You did a great job on that. I must commend you.
Yes. I went slightly to the left dark side. Yay.
I noticed.
I showed that I do have a little bit of feminism inside me. So, but yes, I got that out. And getting season 5, getting that sorted out, getting interviews lined up for that. That's going really well. Got some exciting stuff coming.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I'm so excited.
And and that's pretty much it. Oh, I've watched a zombie series on Netflix called Black Summer, which is really
watched
good.
that. I'm waiting for season 2. Excellent.
Yeah, which is a couple weeks. Yeah, very good. It's
June
interesting.
16th, I think.
It's very interesting to see a zombie apocalypse happening at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Normally it's like someone falls asleep, they wake up in the middle of it. That's normally what you get.
Right.
So you end up in the middle of the story. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's
Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. Well, Walking Dead. Rick.
I haven't heard of that.
Wakes up in the middle of it.
No, Black Summer.
28 days later.
They kind of show a bit. They kind of show bits before he falls asleep in the hospital and stuff. But yeah, I haven't heard of Black Summer though. What?
We're on the final season of that. I'm going to see it through. I stopped watching Fear and all that and all the spinoffs. I just can't. I hope that they don't do a spinoff on Carol and Daryl. I'll be really upset if they do that. It's just like, let it go.
What I like about Black Summer is that no one is safe.
Nope.
No one is safe. It's like...
It is pretty daunting, isn't it?
And I have to sit there and say that it's always quite interesting to see a white person with an afro who's overweight wearing lime green sneakers run. I don't know. It always gives me something to watch. So, but besides that, and I'm playing Resident Evil Village, which is
cool,
bloody, scary, fantastic, sets, storyline, the female vampires in it. I mean, fantastic. Obviously,
what's this?
It's a computer game called Resident Evil Village.
Resident Evil Village. Okay.
It's so good. I don't have any game systems, but I've been watching people play on YouTube because that's all I have while I'm doing schoolwork. So yeah, it looks so interesting. I would love to play that if I could. I think one of my favorite characters aside from like Domatresk is probably what is that lady's name with the puppet? That little puppet character,
Benevito.
Yeah, Benevito. Yeah, I think Angie that's so doll. Interesting, especially that creepy house with like all the flying dolls and the creepy parasitic arms. I think that was really cool. It reminded me of like so many older like horror films. Like it feels more classic horror than anything has felt in a while. So I think that's kind of why I like it, because it has like that old German kind of horror feel that earlier movies had, because I think they were inspired by a lot of, like Dracula, stuff like that.
I mean, it's quite good because
the graphics are just spectacular.
Well, it's the second
they
part
really
of the
are.
They're
Well. So good.
The second part of the trilogy, the first one was 7, which basically takes place in Louisiana, and this family who's like kind of a ripoff of Texas Chainsaw Massacre family, and then and then this is a spin-off of that. Then there's a third part that's coming out in about 3 years' time. So, but it's I have to say, it's affected me so much that basically I had these really weird dreams lately from playing it. So which is good. So it's really but a lot of it's kind of subliminal horror that goes on as well. There's a lot of stuff that's going on, and I played in the dark with the surround sound system on to freak myself out even more. So,
I'll have to tell Tyler
so fun.
about.
By the way, that's HBO Max. Did they ever do a second season on the Lovecraft?
Not yet.
By takeoff. That was I watched the first few episodes of that. That was pretty good. And then they were charging too much.
Lovecraft Country.
That's
Country,
That's it. Yeah.
I think they are doing a second series of that. They're doing a second series of that, and they're also doing a second series of Them as well, which is very, very good as well. That was kind of freaky, actually. Them was. So.
Well, now that COVID is starting to disappear, the movie industry is opening up again, and there are a lot, and I think that's going to be very, very good, especially now that. What is it? Amazon has bought MGM.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is at least 4,000 films and TV shows or whatever that is going to be added to the Amazon Prime Vault. So that's going to be, and they're not raising the prices from what I understand, which is great. I mean, that's going to be nice.
Yeah.
People who want to watch. So that's a good thing.
Well, hopefully during the COVID for the last year and a half, the screenwriters are actually been writing interesting stuff instead of like showing what we have been getting the last few years.
I still have yet to see COVID zombies or whatever. I've stopped seeing them yet.
Oh, I saw it. It's not.
Was
good.
it
My prediction.
Was it COVID zombies? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, Corona zombies.
Corona zombies. Yeah, I heard it was awful, but it's something
like
I have to watch.
It's
So
pretty
stupid.
It's pretty dreadful. Pretty dreadful. Very dreadful.
My prediction is that there's going to be a lot of contagion films or films about illnesses or diseases.
I think we're burnt out on pandemics.
I think we've seen this for over 2 years now.
I think people are actually burned out on
Something
pandemic.
about
though.
this.
Yeah.
I hope so because I'm kind of over the like film idea as well because I don't really want to watch movies but because the zombie, like I kind of wish they'd bring back traditional horror zombies where they're brought to life voodoo or witchcraft thing. They didn't come from the virus thing, and I think the whole virus aspect came from that one book from a long time ago. I forget was it Burroughs that wrote it? The film that inspired the movie I Am Legend. That's where the whole virus.
That's Matheson.
Zombie came from.
Yeah, Richard Matheson.
I Am Legend, and that also spawned the Price movie, The Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
And then after that, you had Charlton Heston's Omega Man.
Yeah.
And that came out of that. So
then you got Will Smith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the whole affected zombie thing all came out of 28 Days Later because that was about infection. They weren't actually zombies. They were the infected. So
I liked those movies.
Hi, everybody. Tom Diamond here from the Literary License Podcast, and we are going to be talking today about episodes 549 to 570 in the Dark Shadows retrospective. And let's start off with the stars. Not too many appear in the first block, but the most significant one is the introduction of Don Briscoe as Tom Jennings the Vampire. Tom will go on to portray a number of other characters in the series, and on House of Dark Shadows in the movie he portrays Todd. Don Briscoe passed away at the very young age of 64 on Halloween, in fact, in 2004. Don Briscoe was first introduced to the Dark Shadows world by Roger Davis. The two of them were close friends, lifelong. They went to college together, and Roger Davis had persuaded Don Briscoe to go for the audition there. And interestingly enough, they both competed for the affections of Jocelyn Smith, who wound up being Roger's first wife. Anyway, rest in peace, Don. Craig Slocum returns as Harry Johnson for a couple of episodes. We already know about Craig Slocum. Interesting blooper coming up, which we'll talk about in that section. James Shannon, who was the jailer in 1795, comes back here for a speaking role as the deputy sheriff that Angelique almost makes a victim out of in episode 556. Interesting here is the one episode appearance of Beverly Hope Atkinson. She is one of two black actresses who were on Dark Shadows. Actually, she was the only actress, and she was in episode 563, portraying the nurse. And she's the one that gave Nicholas Blair a hard time and wouldn't let him into Tom Jennings' room. The other black actor, incidentally, for your information, was Henry Todd Baker. He is going to come on in a much later segment of the episode. Okay, and with Beverly Hope Atkinson, it's very interesting because she went on to portray in in Hill Street Blues, the character of Vivian DeWitt. She was on for 6 episodes of Hill Street Blues. She has also been on Sanford and Son, Police Story, and also, I believe, was, yes, in The Centurions with George C. Scott. So she had some interesting roles after that. Okay, so now we go to the bloopers. There are a lot of them. So I am just going to briefly cover the more interesting ones. And of course, remember, we've got the booms, we've got the shadows, and so forth, as usual. In episode 549, you're going to see an electrical cable wire on the floor to the right of Nicholas Blair in the Angelique's coffin room. When you see it vertically and there's a candle on top of the coffin. Well, there's an electrical cable wire to the right on the floor by the wall. You do not see that in the credits where you see the same scene. So that part is very interesting. In episode 550, you'll notice that Vicky's engagement ring at one point is on the 3rd finger of her left hand rather than the 4th finger of her left hand. Not sure as to why that's going on. Incidentally, great acting by Robert Rodan. We have, as usual, the usual complement of actors. Robert Rodan, you've seen a lot on this block. Humphrey Allen Estrado as Blair is seen a lot. Thayer David does some really nice acting as Professor Stokes. Clara's Blackburn, you see in a couple of episodes. She's really filler, along with Craig Slocum as son Harry. Grayson Hall, of course, Lara Parker portrays a lot of stuff. She chews up the scenery in this episode, as well as a few next, as Angelique the Vampire. This is the first appearance of Angelique the Vampire, and probably one of the best blocks in the entire series in terms of the emoting, and we'll talk about that as well. An interesting blooper also in episode 550 is Professor Stokes' telephone, which is shown to be Collinsport 4099. In actuality, Collinsport 4099 is the telephone in the main hall at Collinwood. They took that phone and they put it in Stokes' apartment. And we know that Stokes had a different phone number also because in a prior month, Julia had referred to Stokes' phone number as having a Rockport extension. To be correct, Rockport 6868. Now, for the medical people who are listening to this podcast, episode 551, you should take a real close look at that when it comes to the scenes of Harry Johnson, Craig Slocum, and Robert Rodan. At one point, Craig Slocum is picking up either a knife or a cup of something to give to Adam, and the camera focuses on a close-up of his hand, that is Craig Slocum's hand, and you see there's a tremor in the hand. And I believe he's probably taking the knife away from Adam, because remember, Adam tries to kill himself. And he's taking the knife away from Adam. What you see there is called an intentional tremor with an I. And that actually is something that you get when you have something called an essential tremor. It basically is a tremor that occurs when you make a voluntary movement in when you pick something up. And that's a voluntary movement, and you get an involuntary tremor. So now that you've all been put to sleep by the medical lecture, I don't think that's been picked up anywhere by any of the experts in Dark Shadows. But when you have a big the 46-inch or 48-inch screen that you're looking at on these episodes on Amazon Prime. That's what you can basically see. No one would ever have seen that on a dinky little TV that everybody was watching back then. Humphrey Allen Estrado makes a rare voice blooper as Nicholas when he says, "Isn't it strange that a new tragedy can bring back a possible, probable result?" You'll also notice that Adam has a much more sizable vocabulary in this block. And Robert Rodan really does a great job in terms of showing his acting to the fore. Some can say that he might have overacted, but I don't think so. I think he was trying to really epitomize the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in doing what he was doing. I will give a shout out to DarkShadowsEveryday.com. Danny Horn did a very interesting little experiment. He actually counted the words, the vocabulary of Adam, which came out to be 166 words, and compared that to the words of Boris Karloff in Bride of Frankenstein, which were only 44 words. So apparently Adam had a vocabulary that was 5 times as much as Karloff's. Interesting. 552 is notable because this is really the first time that Eve, and that will be Adam's mate, isn't talked about by name, but the idea of Adam's mate is first mentioned by Nicholas Blair. And there's a lot of borrowing from horror classics by Dan Curtis. Nicholas Blair's talking about creating a race of monsters that will take over the world reminds me of Bela Lugosi in Bride of the Monster in 1956, if you remember that memorable epic where Lugosi makes the famous "Home, I have no home, hunted, despised, the jungle is my home, but I will create a race of atomic supermen that will conquer the world." Well, that's exactly what you see in Nicholas Blair's interpretation, or at least in his plans. There are also references when Angelique gives the "I'm so helpless, help me" to the deputy sheriff portrayed by James Shannon. Doesn't that remind you of Horror of Dracula, the first Christopher Lee movie, where his vampire bride is trying to seduce Jonathan Harker by saying how helpless she is to try and entice him into her clutches? Anyway, I digress. Let's go to episode 553. And there you have the first of a series of what I call the wibbly wobblies. Adam bumps into a tree in the forest, and the papier-mâché tree starts to wobble. You're also going to see John Carlin as Willie Loomis, who makes a few appearances here, bump into a column in the old house, and that starts to wobble, and he does that a couple of times. Interestingly enough, and of course, Adam kidnaps Vicky for the third time. Vicky always seems to be kidnapped. Remember, she was locked in a room the first year in the West Wing. Then Matthew Morgan kidnapped her, and now Adam has kidnapped her. And in the room that Adam is staying, in the episode before this, you saw a brick wall that has been magically converted into a storage closet where Vicky is kept. Adam also is the best advertisement for homeschooling that I've ever seen, and I talk about that in the main episode here. Professor Stokes has really done a great job with him. And I'll give Danny Horn a shout out once again, because he pointed that out in DarkShadowsEveryday.com. That's really a great reference work. You may not always agree with Danny's opinions, but the bottom line is that it's a terrific blog on balance in terms of the factual recitation of the Dark Shadows history. There are others, but Danny is up there. 554 is notable for the first episode of Don Briscoe. Jonathan Frid, unfortunately, seems to be missing his mark in a few of these episodes. In fact, in one episode, he's practically competing with Julia, who is on her mark all the time, and he's getting in the way, and the camera is looking at his back when it should be looking at Jonathan. Also, in this episode, we see a horizontal view of the coffin rather than the vertical view that we've been seeing all along. But that may or may not be a blooper, actually. In episode 555, the final music starts too early and starts again. We get her first, and now we have in 555, we have a nice glimpse of Angelique the vampire. When Adam leaps into a door, we see stage lights. 556 is interesting because you see Angelique in a black frilly lace dress. They changed that after a while to a white dress, I think to give her more of an angelic look. And once again, that's a kind of tribute to a combination of horror of Dracula and also Brides of Dracula, which Keith points out in the main episode. But that black dress, I understand, in reality was originally worn by Diana Malay when she portrayed Laura Stockbridge Collins in the first year. And the black dress, I believe, was a hand-me-down from Diana Malay to Laura Parker. 557 is the specific episode that we just talked about where Jonathan Frid was missing his mark all the time while Grayson Holo was right on top of her marks, and the two interfered. But they still were great in terms of the chemistry they had. And you're going to see also in this block the development of a real bond of trust that the Barnabas character feels towards Julia. After all, Julia and Willie dug him out of a grave when he was, as it turned out, buried alive. The dream curse had gotten him to the point where he was dead for a while, but because Adam is still around, he cannot be turned into a vampire. So he was kind of revived in the coffin. Julia and Willie realized what was going on and dug him out in time. In 558, Collinsport Fly makes a couple of appearances, actually, and in this one he lands on Nicholas. In another episode, the Collinsport Fly lands on the telephone of Joe Haskell's apartment and decides to stay there for a while. Obviously, the fly probably wanted to make a phone call and had a problem. 559 is relevant because for the first time, the chroma key effect, or the blue screen, is used in the mirror of Nicholas's apartment to show other scenes of what's happening. And it is interesting that in one of the scenes, Angelique the vampire, who supposedly cannot cast a reflection in the mirror, we do see Laura Parker's reflection very briefly in that mirror. Also, take a look for the scenes where Angelique is biting Joe, and you get a nice view at one point of a 18th century witch who has silver fillings in her mouth, which are very clearly shown when she's about to bite Joe. I wonder how that one happened. 560 is notable for some backstage chatter, probably directions by the director that's going on while John Carlin is speaking of Willie. It distracts him temporarily, and he says, "What?" But then, and that is a tribute to the late John Carlin, that he actually tried to incorporate that "what" into the Willie dialogue. Very interesting. Now 561 is the episode where the Collinsport Fly pays a visit to Joe Haskell's phone, and also Willie bumps against the pillar of the old house, which wobbles a bit. And also, we get a bird's eye view of Joe's apartment, which turns out to be a redress of the Burke Devlin hotel room, as well as Tony Peterson's apartment. And you still see the apartment number 24, which all three share on the door. Also, the Afghan, which is multicolored Afghan, which is usually on the couch in Maggie Evans' house, mysteriously makes its way over to Joe's apartment. Maybe she gave that to him as a gift. And that was episode 561. Now, 562 has the cable wire, a cable wire dangling from the left side of the drawing room at Collinwood, and that's the one with the silver fillings in Angelique the Vampire's mouth. As we stated, Beverly Hope Atkinson appears in episode 563. If you look very closely, when the coffin is opening, supposedly by itself in episode 563, you may be able to see a stagehand pulling the coffin open to the very, very left of the screen. It's very, very fast. And Angelique is wearing a blanket. Well, I guess she got a little cold resting all day in that coffin. So there's a thin blanket underneath her cleavage. Over her cleavage, I should say. 564 is notable for the statement of Joe telling one of the characters that Tom Jennings was his only relative. And later on, you're going to see that that's not true. All of a sudden, a couple of other family members pop up, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But Tom Jennings was definitely not the only relative that Joe had. Of course, they were cousins. One wonders, and Danny Horn brings this up in episode 565, that Julia had the radio playing, and if the old house had no electricity, how can you have a radio playing there? Well, there were battery-operated radios in those days, and it's very possible that that radio could have had batteries in it. But also, it's been evinced later on that there might have been a generator in the basement of the old house which allowed them to conduct the experiments. But as far as the radio is concerned, I kind of think that it might have been battery-operated. Episode 567 is notable for a fight between Jeff Clark and Adam in the garden when Jeff is talking to Vicky, and Adam all of a sudden comes upon them. Vicky recognizes him, her memory is returned, and Jeff foolishly tries to take on Adam and gets knocked on his derriere for his efforts. And Roger may have hit his head against the plywood railing there, because for a while in the rest of the episode, he keeps scratching, he keeps putting his hand to his head. Now, that could have been because he was trying to get over the head injury that he suffered, but maybe Roger actually was hurt. I'll find that out at a future time. I'll do some more research into that. It's interesting that Julia can develop the talent of reading Eric Lang's notes upside down, as we see in episode 568. 569 is a great blooper because as Liz is emoting in the Great Hall of Collinwood, you actually see the ABC camera panning to the right as it's trying to follow her, or I should say to the left. Another camera is taking a view of Liz, and it catches that side camera, which pulls away immediately as they realize their mistake. Notice also that Tom Jennings' crypt is a redress of the caretaker's domicile. You remember the caretaker. Evil lurks here. I do miss Daniel Keyes. And finally, in episode 570, and I don't know if this was deliberately done, but as Tom is about to bite Julia, he crosses his eyes. And that is something to be seen. So, that is a almost comprehensive list of the bloopers that went on in that block. It may not be everything, but I think it gives you a very good idea. I thank you very much for listening, and now let's get back to the show.
synopsis for Dark Shadows, August 1968. Nicholas moves into the house by the sea and brings Angelique's coffin into the basement. When Adam learns that Carolyn does not love him, he tries to kill himself. After being influenced by Nicholas, Adam demands that Barnabas create a mate for him. Victoria tells Barnabas she will marry Jeff Clark. Later, she is kidnapped in the woods by Adam. Victoria begs for her freedom, but Adam tells her she is to be held as a hostage. Handyman Tom Jennings finds Angelique's coffin and is attacked in the woods. Nicholas supplies drugs to Adam to render Victoria unconscious. Nicholas releases Angelique from her coffin as a vampire under his power. Professor Stokes tried to convince Adam to reveal where he is hiding Victoria. Julie agrees to create a mate for Adam, who threatens to destroy the Collins family otherwise. Nicholas encounters Maggie with Joe Haskell and orders Angelique to attack Joe. Willie is persuaded to help with the experiment. Angelique bites Joe. In the old house basement laboratory, Julia makes preparations for the experiment. Nicholas fears Tom Jennings will reveal the secret of Angelique's coffin. Angelique sends Joe to Tom's room in the hospital. With Joe's help, she bites Tom. Barnabas forces Willie to dig up Tom's grave where they discover it's empty. Barnabas tells Julia that Tom is now a vampire. Tom breaks into the old house. Julia informs Barnabas that she cannot continue with the experiment. Barnabas discovers fang marks on Julia's neck. Jeff breaks into the laboratory. Roger reports to Elizabeth the escape from Wincliffe Sanitarium a bit mad. Elizabeth secretly follows Julia to the tomb containing Tom's coffin. Barnabas rescues Julia and returns it to the crypt to fight the vampire. And that was August 1968 on Dark Shadows. Hello, welcome back to Literary Relations Podcast, and we're discussing episodes 549 to 570. And starting with you, Jesse, what are your thoughts of these episodes?
So I thought they were kind of funny, actually. Especially Elizabeth. Elizabeth made me laugh so hard. I don't know what it is, but her acting out of character is so funny to me, especially her obsession with death. Everyone else is normal, and she's going around like, oh, you're dead. You're dead. They just don't want me to think you're dead. Oh, they left you here to die alone. And I thought those were so funny when she was saying that. And Julia was just trying to be normal, asking questions. I mean, she was just bitten.
That was hysterical.
It was so funny. Oh my God. It was so funny.
Julia's sitting there dying, and all of a sudden you're going to die. You're going to die alone.
Oh, we're going to go into this later.
Hysterical.
But when she finds Tom Jennings' coffin, and we'll talk about that, but she says, "Oh, is that mine?"
Yeah.
Did he really let Elizabeth wear that velvet nightgown to the hospital, like with all her jewelry?
I'm sorry, but this is even worse. When Angelique comes back as a vampire, how many poofy outfits does she have? It's like everything's like overlaced and poofy, and it's like, oh my God, what have they done to her?
Yeah. Well, she's supposed to look the part, the feminine mystique of vampirism. So
no, she just looks like someone who's like got run over by Laura Ashley and just like
here's a little
covered head to toe in lace and puffiness.
Here's a little piece of trivia for you.
God.
The first dress that you see Laura Parker in is a vampire, the black thing.
Yeah.
That was actually worn by Diana Malaya's Laura. And
really?
Yeah. And just think of that back then. And apparently they were the same size or something. So she wore, but then they changed it to the white thing. Because they wanted this angelic look to contrast the fact that she was really evil. Frankly, I would have liked Stendhalian. I would have liked to have seen her in black and red, but that was good. That was good.
I just couldn't believe this. Like, it's almost like everything was like so full of lace and like puffy sleeves. It's like, oh my God, what happened to her? She first of all was like, when she's Cassandra living in the modern world, she's like all these like flowery prints and stuff like this, all this polyester. And so I was like, oh my God, like boof. I'm in velvet now. She's like, okay.
Well, I think that they're trying to keep the historical at the thing with it, like the pretty vampire, the costumery, like from 1795. I think that they're still trying to generate that kind of feeling.
I think so, but I do think that they could have made her a bit more
Possibly, yeah.
a bit more sexual.
But there was one
Because,
She
I mean,
exudes sexuality.
Yeah, but there's that one outfit. She looked like a pilgrim. I'm sorry, she looked like a downward pilgrim.
I'm just glad she looks like Angelique again. I hate that black wig on her.
But
'Cause
there's
she's a
one
stunning
episode.
woman.
Oh, I know. Everyone that I talk to hates that black wig.
But there's one episode where she actually comes back as the original Angelique when she appears to Vicky, while Vicky is locked up, and of course Vicky is now kidnapped for the third time.
Right.
I mean, they just can't do enough kidnappings with the poor woman. The first time she was locked up in the room, and then of course that Matthew Morgan kidnapped her, and now Adam has kidnapped her, and she appeared to Angelique in a kind of mediumistic sequence or something to give her she wanted the engagement ring and so forth. So you see her as she was in 1795, but I really got to say that this is one of my favorite. Now this is getting into one of my favorite plots of the show, because Lara Parker as a vampire, it was so sexy and and my God, and you'll see later on when I get into when her little thing with Barnabas starts, and she takes chunks out of him, and it was just so and in this block,
twist.
Yeah, but in this block, it's you kind of think of Horror of Dracula, when the first guy she runs after is the deputy sheriff, who is portrayed, by the way, by James Shannon, who was the jailer in 1795. And she's like, "Oh, please help me, me." And you think back to that scene where Harker in Horror of Dracula, the Christopher Lee, meets the female vampire who's doing the same thing. So it's really interesting. So you really see some stuff, but I'm digressing. And Jesse, I'm sorry, I don't want to take away from you. What else did you have to say about this?
About Liz? Yeah, I just thought she was super funny. Julie was kind of interesting too after she got bit by Chris, but
Julie.
Elizabeth just being kind of like.
She's so dramatic.
No, Liz wasn't. It was Julie was getting
Julie was getting a toy boy. She was quite happy.
That's another thing. Julia finally gets hers. She finally gets hers, boy. It's her. You see Grayson Hall walking around. Tom.
I know. It's just like, come on.
And the worst is like, he goes, "You need to go back to the house." And then when she goes, "Can I go with you?"
I can't wait to meet him in the woods.
It reminds me of that hysterical skit I saw on YouTube. Someone did a really good job of reenacting a skit between Julia falling in love with Tom and then Barnabas getting jealous. Did you guys see that? It was so
but
funny.
I'm gonna look for it.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah, it's so good. Like they did the whole Julia accent and everything, like the way she talks. They got it down.
There were some very good Julia impersonators.
Oh, I just love how the way Julia's face projects everything. She just has so much personality that she exudes out of her facial expression. Mm-hmm. Just forget the script. I mean, Julia just dramatizes everything, and I just love her. Every time I see her, I know I'm never going to be disappointed, especially if she gets bit by a vampire, and a young, good-looking one at that. I just can't. I have to go to see him. I can't stop. I gotta go.
That's right. I mean. But then Briscoe, here's Briscoe, when he overacted a little bit. Julia, come to me, Julia.
Yeah,
I need some of that. Julia. and this again. Now this goes back again, and boy, is Curtis ripping off every friggin' movie around. This goes back to The Return of the Vampire with Lugosi in 1946, the Columbia one, where he's going after Frida in Court, and you hear Lugosi, "I need you, come to me, I want you, I am waiting for you." But so I think Briscoe was trying to mimic that. But boy, was that overacted. I swear to God.
He made a good vampire, though. His coloring, they finally got the coloring and everything down.
Yeah, but you got to
intimidating.
But where the hell did the black eyeliner come from? It's just like you die and they give you black eyeliner. Like,
I think if everyone could look that good after being dead, I think most people would, do
it. Yeah.
Try to die and come back to life or something. But I also thought some of Jonathan Frid, like whenever he feels like he's about to be exposed, when people are questioning, like if he just acted cool, like nonchalant, it wouldn't be so suspicious. And luckily, no one in Collinsport is observant and they don't notice him acting weird and suspicious. He always makes these expressions like, ooh, like I'm going to get caught or something.
Yeah,
He's always like,
this
quiet,
part of the
around, and, like looking around.
Yeah, like a cage, like a caged dog, like he's been caught.
Well, talk about overacting. You got Joe. Joe is like totally just wow. Joe's
well, I think, I mean, the other hand of Joe. Joe's in a situation where he's probably the only time. This is the only time that we've actually seen him vulnerable ever in anything that we've ever seen before. He's like, and I think he's kind of like. Not because he's the knight of shining armor, isn't he? Joe, the knight of shining armor. And even when he's Nathan Forbes, he was kind of Nathan Forbes, the evil one, sort of thing. But he's never been in a case where he's basically the pawn in someone else's game, really.
Yeah. Well, I think Kravitz does a very good job here because when you first see him coming back into Maggie Evans' house, he's out of the hospital, and from when Adam hit him or something, and he's dressed in, they got him now dressed in suits and full, and in shirts and ties, and I personally like him when they have him in the turtlenecks.
Right.
And of course, after Angelique bites him, there's plenty of a chance for him to wear a turtleneck. Yeah. But he comes back originally. And he's fine and he's normal and then of course Angelique gets him and he's a torture and why does Angelique get him? Because now there's a little romance here developing between Nicholas and Maggie. You see the Nicholas starts to, and this we were talking about last block. And, wouldn't it be interesting if Nicholas started, and now this is starting to develop.
Right.
And Nicholas is taking the shine to Maggie and and Nicholas says to Angelique, you go after Joe. I want him out of the way because I want to go after Maggie. And, he doesn't tell her that, but
now that Maggie's dad's dead, Maggie needs a daddy figure. A father figure.
Does Nicholas not get on your nerves a little bit that nobody notices how evil he is and how evil he looks, and he just looks like somebody sure, stay here for a couple months. I don't care.
I mean, the thing is, I love Nicholas, but he's like evil camp. There's a camp like a Disney villain.
Evil under your nose.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like evil under your nose, and it's like no one notices. But then again, like no one in Collinsport is smart enough. They don't understand anything. They don't understand.
Well, at least they say it.
That's what everyone says.
That's right.
They've already been through all these like supernatural things. Like you've already known about a vampire. You've already known about the phoenix, and they just shoved the paranormal to the side. Oh well, we'll think of something else.
They always think it's something else. They never remember any of their experiences, and they're always so flabbergasted when something supernatural comes along. I mean, it's so weird.
And another thing is, I mean, people in Collinswood cannot read people at all, can they? It's like, you're evil. Do you want to stay upstairs in one of our guest rooms?
No, we'll just give you a house by the seaside because you're the son of Satan.
Now, this is where I had a problem. Okay, that house on the seaside. The house.
That was Lang's house.
Yeah, but the house on the seaside, isn't that the one that Victoria and Burke were going to live in?
I thought
it's
not the same house, though.
I don't know if it's the same house.
It's not the same house.
No, it isn't the same house.
Okay, because it belongs to Joan Bennett. Well,
most of the houses belong to them.
Yeah,
but that was a totally different set. This was Lang's house
by the seaside.
Yeah,
this was a picture of. It reminds me of Monster Movie Matinee. Remember how they used to show that house with the smoke coming out of it?
Yeah,
that's what it reminded me of when I saw that. It's like, oh god.
This was a redress of Lang's house, and
okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was the one that
Victoria.
Victoria.
Familiar.
I thought it was going to be the one that Victoria and Burke were looking at that they were going to buy before Burke's plane crashed.
No, I thought so too.
And that's why I thought it's like when Victoria was like stored there, it's like, didn't she? Obviously, she didn't look through the house before they were going to buy it. That's what I thought.
Because they had a scene. They had a scene as they entered. It's a totally different room.
Oh, okay.
That you enter from the house
Speaking
into
of
like
Vicky,
a living room area or something.
She gets
like
drugged again and dragged and kidnapped, like y'all were saying. And then
this Maggie.
You got Stokes as a minute.
But I have to sit there and say what we discussed in previous episodes. The big love story in Dark Shadows is not Barnabas and Josette. It's Barnabas and Victoria, isn't it? It's even in this block. Everything is for the love of Victoria.
Yeah.
Victoria might not love me, but I will do whatever it is. I'll put my family in
and Barnabas
danger.
puts his life on when Victoria is kidnapped.
He's worse than Adam and Carolyn.
Yeah.
And speaking of Adam and Carolyn,
it's the biggest love story in Dark Shadows. It's amazing that people always think that it's Barnabas and Josette. It's not Barnabas and Josette. The love story in Dark Shadows is always Barnabas and Victoria.
Well, in the present it is. In the past, it was Barnabas. No. In the past, I think in 1795, it really was Barnabas and Josette and the Angelique Triangle. Vicky comes in and stuff like that, but Barnabas never had any. The pre-Barnabas never really had any love interest towards Victoria.
Yeah, but but at the same time, he never put his life on the line for Josette ever.
But in the present, it's very different. In the present, it's very different.
But even in 1795, it's like he was putting his life on the line for Victoria. He didn't do that with Josette. When Josette was like acting like a horny cat, rubbing herself up against his uncle. The thing is like, I don't want nothing to do with you, sort of things.
I don't know if he put his life on the line for Victoria. I think he wanted to protect her.
Precisely.
And he got involved because of Angelique. I think he felt very guilty because Victoria was blamed for being a witch instead of Angelique. And he thought that was tremendously unfair. There's only so much he could do, especially since he was a vampire. There was only so much he could do.
Everyone else he tried to protect, he ended up getting killed, didn't he? Like his sister.
Yeah, but it takes on an extra dimension.
I think it also stems. I think it also stems from prior seasons where he wanted to find a second suitable Josette, but because she already had an affiliation on her own with Josette, he kind of found fascination with Victoria as she was, just because she kind of was already having this strange relationship with the ghost of Josette. And I think that's why he was fine with Victoria, because there was enough of Josette, but she was still an individual person that he didn't have to hypnotize into becoming Josette. She kind of was already naturally the way he wanted her to be. Whereas Maggie, he had to like mind control
But Barnabas has never put his life on the line for anyone. Ever. No family members, nothing. The only one he's ever put his life on the line for is Victoria, every single time.
And speaking of Barnabas, did Carolyn just conveniently forget that Barnabas was eating off of her neck at all? And she not
probably
he was hypnotized, I think. I think Julia hypnotized her into forgetting.
And another thing is, I think that once you become human, doesn't like any preconceived idea that you've been bit. It like washes away from you. It's like this. It's like a witch casts a spell on you, and that witch dies.
Oh, that might have been it, Keith. That might have been it. I think when that was probably it. But the main plot lines here, and of course there are a few plot lines going on.
Right.
One is, of course, Angelique the vampire, and and Joe Haskell really being the first victim, and the resulting tension between him and Maggie, because Joe now is running to Angelique every night, and Maggie doesn't know what the hell's going on, and she's going nuts with that. That's one plot. Then, of course, this is the greatest advertisement for homeschooling that ever was when it comes to Adam, who is now speaking at least 200 to 300 words. Yeah. And I think darkshadowseveryday.com, I'll give them credit for it. They actually counted the fact that he had a 166 word vocabulary, where Boris Karloff and Bride of Frankenstein had a 44 word vocabulary. So Adam is doing 4 times as much. It is really funny.
And he's learned to be conniving as well now. So
well, now that's fascinating because here we have, and I think this is a very weird combination. Nicholas is teaching him to be conniving, but Stokes, who has taught him to be honest and forthright. So there's now a battle going on for Adam's loyalty between what Stokes taught him, which was to be good and upright and honest and forthright, and what Nicholas is teaching him to be conniving and a son of a bitch and a bastard in preparation for his own plan. So there's this, and I think it's fascinating, this little tug of war between Stokes and Nicholas. What an unlikely pair.
Well, Nicholas
I think that's on purpose.
Victoria's memory as well. So she doesn't even know when she's been kidnapped. She loses days, and she has no clue what happened.
She's gone back to not understanding. That's just great.
Well, remember, that was the original not understanding person, and that maybe it was a plague because it infected everybody else, and now nobody.
Well, but another thing is that then we get like the uncomfortability, which we had this before with Burke and Victoria, where now it's Jeff Clark. Jealousy and not understanding, and it's like, and it's got it's a bit uncomfortable actually, because the way that this is the way he treats her. He's not very supportive. And I said, I don't know why. I mean, the thing is, we saw this with Burke, and it was kind of unsettling with Burke, and now it's like being repeated with Jeff, and you're kind of thinking, God, why did they do this? This doesn't. I mean, you think. I mean, I can understand him being slightly.
I still think she would have been better with the lawyer.
Well, see, that's another plot now. The Jeff and Vicky get engaged, and that's more soap opera. They've got to keep a little soap opera in.
Well, Victoria's like the perils of Pauline.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everything happens to her.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, but I do think that I don't know. I mean, just for a bit of variety's sake, it'd be nice. I mean, if Jeff wants to be jealous of Barnabas, that's fine. But at the same time, it would have been nice if they added a bit more caring about Victoria and what happened to Victoria and why she disappeared. Because like, oh, you dropped your ring. It's like, he's like upset with her about it. But it's like, she went missing for like how many days? It's like she didn't come back with her wedding ring. So obviously something happened. It's not like she took it off to meet Barnabas. It's like, why are you acting this way? So there's a bit of like,
you were cheating on me with your kidnapper.
Well, it's almost like they're not quite sure what to do with the Jeff Clark character. There's something they don't really know what to do with him. So there's like, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give him the Burke storyline sort of thing kind of thing. And it kind of
is he gonna take a plane?
But that's been the Burke storyline all along with the Peter Bradford, Jeff Clark thing. Only the added thing is that Peter Bradford was the past, and this is a reincarnation of Peter Bradford, which you didn't have in Burke Devlin.
But is it? But is he a reincarnation, or is he just Peter Bradford?
We don't know that. We don't know that yet. We're going to find out.
As of right now.
Right now, we don't know that yet. But this thing with what was that? That was like a turquoise or something like that, because it didn't look like a diamond or anything like that.
It was a sapphire or a topaz, wasn't it?
And the blooper was she's wearing it on the third finger of her left hand, except rather than the fourth finger of her left hand. No,
that's because there's a great big middle finger to everyone.
I was going to leave that one to you. I wanted you to say that. I wanted you to say that, Keith.
That's a big F you to everyone. Look at my wedding. I'm getting married. F you, everyone here at Collinswood.
Now, Nicholas wears a pinky ring, and who the hell knows where that comes from? I still have to research.
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he?
And I still have to research. Every once in a while.
Nicholas Blair.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of Nicholas Blair, I don't know why, but when I watch the romance between him and Maggie, it kind of reminds me of like the rumors of like Anton LaVey and who was that blonde that was killed, and they always blamed it on like the satanic cult. Jane Mansfield.
Jane Mansfield.
Jane.
But in this block, you don't see that yet. You're talking about later on.
No.
And later on, you're going to see.
Oh, is that later on? Okay.
That's later on. Right now, he's just playing it slow, playing it smart, playing it strategic. hi, how are you? And he's always around when Maggie's upset and put your head on my shoulder kind of thing. And they go out to the Blue Whale and they have the drinks and so forth. I think that the plots are this is also the first plot where Nicholas talks about Adam's mate.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time in this block that we hear about the mate and about Adam telling Barnabas that, you either create a mate for me or Vicky will die, and then I'm going to kill all the family one by one. And so this is of course injecting the.
Why doesn't somebody just shoot him?
You can't though, because if you shoot Adam, Barnabas dies.
But Willie wants to shoot him.
Right.
But hey,
no, they do know that because they've
they buried him. That's right. Okay.
But you see, but Willie doesn't know any better, and Willie wants to take the gun and shoot him in this block, and they stop him from doing that.
Willie. I feel sorry for Willie.
They're gonna dig out the bodies. I don't care how you feel about it.
He goes, I'm not gonna do it.
Yes, you are.
But what did you think of that little pseudo rape scene between Adam and Carolyn, where Adam starts kissing her furiously and won't let her go?
Yeah.
But the next thing you know, Carolyn is up and about like nothing ever happened, and they don't talk about that. Plus, the other big blooper is that where there was a brick wall in Adam's room, that is automatically now turned into a storage closet where he hides Vicky. And there's no explanation, for that. Other than that, they needed room to do a closet to put Vicky in. But what you now, this is like really, really picking up at this particular point in time. Right. The fans are really, really interested in this. Fred is getting there are 6,000 letters a week coming into the studio. Fred is getting 5,000 of them. And Fred had gone on a 10-week tour or something earlier that year around the country to publicize the Barnabas thing. And that was while probably he was away. And so there's a lot of, and also there's, once again, more references to prior films. When Nicholas talks about his plans now for a race of Adams that will take over the world in service of his master. Well, that reminds me of Bride of the Monster with Bela Lugosi. And Bela Lugosi is home. I have no home. Hunted, tortured. The jungle is my home, but my race of atomic supermen will conquer the world. And so there you have the segue into Nicholas' plans for a race of supermen that will conquer the world. But he expects them to do this, biologically? Well,
so
through Eve.
So basically, he expects Adam to have sex with Eve
and create
and spawn a child.
Correct.
And spawn enough child so that they have to those children actually have to mate with each other.
Yeah.
So basically, we're just going to have a bunch of inbred family members taking over the world, right?
Basically.
Well, they didn't go that far.
But that's the plan. That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Well, let's face it. He's like I said before. He's like Spock. Adam's got the 7-year itch. Remember, he has to go back to the planet Vulcan because he has to mate.
Yeah, but at least there's other Vulcan families there to mate with, not just the one family to mate with. It's, basically, what do you do? Live in a cave and become this cannibal family, like the Swanee family.
But Adam doesn't have it once every 7 years. He has it once every evening.
Weirdest prearranged marriage ever.
I just think that to look at the logistics of this, it'd make more sense. Okay, I'm going to kill your family, but I want 3 brothers and I want 4 mates. One for my 3 brothers and one for me, and then we can all sit there and have group orgies and repopulate the world and take it over. It just the thing is you can have a lot more babies with 4 couples, and he canceled 1 couple. That's it. And
I'd like to know how they educate Adam's progeny. Do they send them to public schools or charter schools, or or what?
Well,
they
give
didn't have
Victoria,
charter schools back
or give
then.
Victoria Winters to teach them up in the attic.
Or have them all go to Bangor.
Yeah.
We're all going to Bangor.
All go to Bangor.
But I mean, another thing is like, and then you kind of often wonders, like, if they brought them alive.
They should have just had.
Well, if they brought, like, if they bring Eve alive, is their plumbing going to work?
Well, I mean, all of her eggs are dead, I'm assuming.
It's a very interesting question. What would happen if they bring her alive and then they find out she can't conceive? What do? They didn't have in vitro back then.
Nicholas would just do something about it, I'm sure. I mean, he seems to be able to have more power.
Maybe there's some sort of
kidnap Victoria for her eggs. Kidnap Victoria for her eggs.
Yeah,
that
really.
too. There you go. Yeah,
I'll take Victoria's eggs.
When in doubt, Victoria.
She's very fertile, according to Johnny Depp.
I thought maybe of some demonic immaculate conception. Instead of one ear, it's the other ear, or something like that.
Oh, that would actually be interesting, because with the Adam and Eve storyline, there's already biblical reference there. They could do like some creepy irony with like an immaculate conception. Oh, Dan Curtis totally missed an opportunity to write a storyline there.
I think they were more interested in ripping things off than writing it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, to be more honest, what they should have done, what Nicholas's plan should do is let's get Eve a mate, so that way we can figure out how to bring the dead back to life. Because let's face it, there's dead body parts they're reanimating, isn't it? So it's the reanimation of this female. And then once we know how to do that, then we can reanimate other corpses to take over the world. And they'll be by control. That's probably what the thought should have been, really.
Probably.
Because otherwise, when you think of the biological way, you're thinking, okay, well, we were looking at about 20 years, and then they need the offspring. So you're probably looking at 80 years. You're going to take over the world with this genetic modified family.
Are they all going to have scars when they're born?
We're all going to move to Arkansas, and we can start mating at 13. Yay!
Yeah, there's this place in Arkansas called Miller Mountain. Yeah. Everybody's a Miller.
Wow. Getting back to Don Briscoe, and I looked up, and he lived till 64, and he died on Halloween. Believe it or not,
of all days,
in 2004. And poor Don Briscoe.
Jason Voorhees got to him.
Don Briscoe was a friend of Roger Davis's, and Roger had convinced him to audition for the role. And Don came from Memphis, Tennessee, and he was born in 1940 in March. And he was in After Dark Shadows and the House of Dark Shadows movie. He really went into relative obscurity because he was bipolar and lived with his parents, and I believe there was a sister. And he did correspond with a few Dark Shadows fans, but he never wanted to go to the conventions because he had gained weight, and he was very self-conscious about that. But we cannot neglect Don Briscoe's contribution to the show, because he started out as Tom Jennings, but he really lasted throughout a good portion of the show in other characters, and we're going to get to that later on.
I thought he was really, I really enjoyed his performance in these blocks. I thought he was pretty good.
I also like the way that he was is brought out, because to be honest, as far as the menfolk are concerned in this show, there's there's not a lot of good looking men on this show. I know that Barnabas, I know that Jonathan Frid became a sex symbol, but I think there's something weird going on there with the women at that time. But
yes.
And I guess, because all you had really, as far as young men is concerned,
they all wanted to be bitten by him.
Yeah, but all you had was Joe. That's it.
Yeah. Well, what about Roger Davis? He wasn't, he was supposedly the good-looking guy,
I think we're seeing it through our century's eyes, where everybody's buff and tan and.
No. But the thing is like if you look at teenagers, and the thing is when Dark Shadows started out, it didn't start out as a teenage show. Right. Now we are in the midst that we are now in the middle of a teenage soap opera, and we got to remember, and this block that we're seeing here is the summer. I mean, this is the summer of 1968. kids, teenagers are watching this. This is the teenagers that saved Dark Shadows. Right. It was the kids that saved Dark Shadows. Otherwise, it would have been canceled. So now we're getting with Tom Jennings coming in. Sorry, not Bresco coming in, and with Joe. Now it's like you can see where we're talking about these two now become like Tiger Beat favorites in '68 and '69. It's like
16 magazine too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite good to be able to see this actually transpire, because before all we had was good looking women around, teenage looking women. I mean, young women and men who, if they were dating, who were quite not very age appropriate.
We also,
that's probably what men wanted back then, was younger women. Older men wanted younger women, and a lot of those older men were the ones writing the show, and Dan Curtis himself was probably into that too.
But then there's a reversal in that Tom Jennings, the younger vampire, wants an older woman. So there's a reversal there. I think they just wanted to give Grace and Hall a chance to, that kind of thing. And this also brings up, Jonathan Frid is Barnabas, and again, and I agree with this. This is brought up by Dark Shadows every day. This whole block, while everything else is happening, Barnabas is reading books for at least 2 weeks. And you just until the thing with Victoria happening, but every scene that's starting, he's reading the book in the old house. So he's pretty sedate. But what I was also going to talk about was this. In this block, we have the introduction of one of two black actors. In this block, Beverly Hope Atkinson played the nurse in the hospital.
Yeah.
She was the only female black actress African American actress on Dark Shadows.
I noticed that. I thought that was like, wow, they're kind of being cool here.
It was just a one-shot appearance where she gives Nicholas Blair a hard time, and she gives him a little ghetto talk when he wants to go and see Tom Jennings, and she says, That
she got all over his shit.
That ain't happening. Don't you dare. But she'll let, she let Maggie in, or Vicky, or either one of them. She let one of them in, but she wouldn't let Nicholas in. And he's like, And the other black actor comes later on, and that was, I believe his name was Henry Judd Baker. I'm blanking out on the last names, either Baker or Bailey, and that's much later in the show when he plays a black servant. But that is just an interesting little trivial thing. And she went on, by the way, to be in Hill Street Blues. She was in a lot of Beverly Hope Atkinson was in a lot of Broadway stuff. She was in off-Broadway stuff. She was in Lysistrata. She was with George C. Scott and the Centurions. And once again, as a hooker. And that was 1972. But she was on Hill Street Blues for a couple of years, I believe, in a recurring role. An interesting trivial sidelight there.
Now, I think that we need to discuss the parenting of Angelique that we're seeing there in this block. The way Nicholas parents Angelique is like when she gets caught voodooing and he takes her special powers away.
Yeah, it's just like, what is that?
and it's like, and then the point where he's like, Joe, you can go now. Angelique, go back to your room. It's so funny. I love that. I love the dynamics of Nicholas parenting Angelique. It's like the first time we get to see Angelique, she can't.
Angelique and Adam.
Yeah,
he's taking on that role.
Well, yeah, you know what? For women feminists in the strictest form of the word, not the zany one. I mean, this was really annoying watching her get pushed around. I was like,
she didn't like it either.
But this is the first time we get to see someone actually honing her in. It's like, you're doing this wrong. Watch a master up here. You shut up and watch me. It's quite nice to see her in that position, because we've never, even as Cassandra, we never seen Angelique in this position
or lose control. Yeah.
And someone to actually call her up on the crap that she does. It's like like, listen, Angelique, you have a lot of good ideas, but you don't know how to play these out to the end. I'm going to show you. And it's quite good to have someone do that. And it's quite good to see her going, try it.
Yes.
I'm like you, my plans are going to work.
But what I also like her do is, but she's not like a child who, like, as soon as Nicholas is out of the room, she goes, well, let me see what I can get away with. And a lot of times he's like, and I love the dynamics there about watching that sort of thing.
I think also, and this is really the first time you see a blue screen effect in the mirror. And of course, with the blooper, you actually see, Nicholas and Angelique are talking, and then in the mirror, instead of seeing the reflection of the house, you see the blue screen in and of itself in preparation for the sedgeway into Collinwood or wherever it's supposed to be, or Adam's room, or it's supposed to be. So that in itself is a bit of a blooper, saying, what the hell is the blue screen doing there? And in fact, it's not in this block, but I remember in the subsequent block, you're actually going to see in the mirror the blue screen being moved into place from as they prepare to do this. So you see the regular reflection, then you see the blue screen moving right in, which is kind of fun. But so now they're experimenting with that now, and they're going to do a lot more mirror scenes, which are really good, because it's a great way of monitoring, for Nicholas and Angelique will start doing it on her own, as you'll see in the later scenes. But so this is another introduction into using another special effect and to get as much as they can out of that. Also, from a technical standpoint, Jack Sullivan, who had been doing some a little directing prior to this, now moves in and directs most of these episodes and takes on the stage name of Sean Dew Sullivan. And I always wondered what that was. When I was a kid and I saw that, I thought they had hired a Hindu director or something like that. But that's really Jack Sullivan. And it was a kind of a 60s kind of take on, maybe a Beatles kind of take on something like that. Go ahead.
Well, technically, Angelique isn't totally out of control because she does get Joe to help her kill Tom.
Yeah, but
so she's got a little bit stuff going on.
Yeah, but Nicholas has something to do with the Jennings. Nope.
Yeah, he's overseeing all the hijinks. That's true. Yeah. He's such an annoying person. Oh my God, it's not like you can stake him or anything.
Vicky, Joe doesn't kill Tom. Barnabas does.
Yeah,
Barnabas kills Tom in this book.
No. I mean, when he initially gets turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Technically, he's dead.
When Angelique died in the hospital. Yes.
I think another thing that we have to talk about in this block is that every character in this block gets a thing called an aside.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know what an aside is a dramatic device in which a character speaks to the audience. By convention, the audience is to realize that the character's speech is unheard by the other characters on the screen. So basically, it's like Julie will be there, and let's say Barnabas is in the background, and you can hear her voice talking about her thoughts. So we can hear her thoughts, though the characters don't hear that. Right. And it's almost like every single character had this. I don't know if Dark Shadows at this point got, oh my God, we can actually record people's voices ahead of time, and we can actually play it so we can hear their thoughts. Because it's like Joe, you got a side. Julia, you got a side. Barnabas, you got one.
Everybody gets one.
Everyone's got an aside.
Yep.
And it got to the point by the end of this block, I was like going, oh my God, it won't be long until that Collinswood Fly will have its own aside.
I'm sure he will. Was this the one where the Collinsport Fly landed on the telephone? I think it was. That was one of the bloopers. The Collinsport Fly landed right in the telephone. Because he couldn't find the person. So, and another blooper, by the way, is the telephone for Professor Stokes. That's the same phone that you found in Collinwood. And they moved that phone over to Professor Stokes' house because they didn't have another phone for him. And the way you know that is because Julia last month talked about Professor Stokes' phone number. It was a Rockford extension.
Yep, that's right.
And now in this, you see Professor Stokes' phone, and it's a Collinsport 4099. that goes to show you how crazy my mind is that I remember stuff.
Remember
like
how heavy phones used to be back in the day?
Oh yeah,
like the really old ones. When you pick up the receiver, they were like
it must have been 5-6 pounds.
Yeah,
must have been 5-6 pounds. I remember those. Oh yeah, the 50s phones especially.
Yeah, they're heavy.
And it's like that's why, like in old movies, when they pick the phone up and they like hit someone over the head, it knocks them out.
I know, because it can.
Because remember, like old crime movies.
I remember
like
that. Yeah,
you pick up the phone and knock them out. Nowadays, if you like, you hit them with your cell phone breaks.
Yeah,
I remember.
Back then, it was a weapon.
Yeah. I have something to say though. I actually really enjoyed this block. Actually,
I did too. I really liked it.
There are going to be more fun blocks like this. Let's not forget, by the way, Harry Johnson, Craig Slocum, who gives his usual. It gives his usual. What's going? Why are you doing this to me, Adam? Portrayal. And
this is the reason why ginger people get picked on the world over, because of this character.
And I was telling, and we were talking before the show, the really observant fans will see when Harry is, I think he's either talking with Adam or he's talking with, I think he's talking with Adam or Nicholas, I forget which one, but you can actually see his hand is shaking, his left hand is shaking, and reminds me of an essential tremor. So maybe Craig Slocum had an essential tremor, but you really do see it. He's picking up something, and you see it. It's what do you call that, Keith? When you pick up something and the hand and you see the hand shaking.
Parkinson's.
Tremors.
It's an no. It's with a tremor. It's an essential tremor. It's you pick something up with the hand, and it starts with an A. I forget, but it's interesting. And you don't see that anywhere else. And I think it was the mistake of the cameraman that he focused on that too much. Joan Bennett, of course, returns after a long vacation in Cannes. And, as we've talked about before, and Jesse was talking about coming back from now she's afraid she's going to be buried alive.
Yeah. They got her totally scatterbrained and paranoid and flipping out.
Absolutely.
This doesn't last that long, I don't think, though. I think this is only for a few episodes, hopefully.
Well, no, that is going to expand.
Funny.
No, that's going to expand. You're going to see that later on, where they do develop the buried alive plot. And almost to the extent that when Tom is, but it was a really funny line. I mean, where she's always thinking of coffins, and when
coffin. That's my coffin. That's my coffin.
That's right.
Everyone's got a coffin. I'm giving you an aside and a coffin.
And when she finds Julia, and when she follows Julia to Tom's crypt, and she sees the coffin, she says, "Is that mine?" Yeah.
Right.
which is really so we have that's a presage of
isn't Angelique's coffin like a recycle too? Wasn't it Barnabas's, because it has the green in it?
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the first time you see the coffin, Nicholas has the candle on the coffin, and he's emoting, and it's vertically. And then the next time you see the coffin is horizontal. So somebody moved the coffin somehow. and the other blooper is when Nicholas, in that first scene where you see Nicholas emoting and he's got the candle in the coffin, there's an electrical camera cable to the right, and it's an electrical cable, and it's on the floor. And then the credits had the same scene, and that's gone. So once again, more wonderful bloopers from Dark Shadows, which we'll probably never see on the soap opera again.
I do have to do a bit of wondering about, because what I don't quite understand about Elizabeth's problem here about her overemphasis on death. I would have thought that when Cassandra died, that spell would have been broken, but obviously it didn't.
Right.
Did it?
It wasn't. No.
Well, technically, she didn't die. She just became the undead. So.
Well, no, she died, and then
she lost her powers. That's right.
And then Nicholas brought her back a couple days later, so she didn't die and just
right.
She died as Cassandra, So Cassandra is dead, right? And then Angelique's back from the past. I don't know. It's hard to figure out.
It is kind of weird. Well, no, she's not back from the past. He turns her into that vampire, so technically her body.
She's an old woman.
But actually, like you got the resurrection, the ascension. Did she ascend with her body into this world, or is it a spiritual thing, or?
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
I don't know how that happened, really, except that she died an old woman, and Nicholas took the body. And the next thing you know, it almost reminds me of the Stargate thing, when you were put in some kind of a sarcophagus, and it was able to heal you, and of course one thing had nothing to do with the other, but there's kind of a weird element in that. But Nicholas apparently was able to resurrect her as a young vampire,
and also like Lost Horizon, where like. They leave Lost Horizon, they leave Lost Horizon because there's one girl like, oh, I want to leave. I want to live my life. And because no one believes that she's 100 and something years old. And of course, when she leaves, she just ages really fast. So it's kind of like that. But it's like, well, if you brought her back to Lost Horizon, would she get young again?
Yeah.
It's kind of a,
it's weird. It's hard.
It's trying to figure out like this. It reminds me of like trying to figure out the plot in like Terminators. Like he went back in time and got her pregnant, and then she had a baby, John Connor, that brought him back. It's like it's like no, my brain hurts.
Yeah.
So it's got that kind of feel.
Sort of like Asher last week. He was asking me, who created the universe? It's like, well, God did. Then he goes, well, who created God? And I go ask your mother. It's like, too deep for me, grandson.
That's a smart kid. Absolutely.
But he asks all these deep questions, like, like the Terminator one. It's like, who did come, the chicken or the egg, But I think they mean it to be a little mind-bending. But her body is clearly here. So, or else she wouldn't be in a state of Nosferatu at this point, so...
Yeah, I mean, we've seen her come and go, and this is going to be a popular plot device. We're going to see her come and go
apparently
for future episodes.
But I like Angelique as the vampire. I'm quite enjoying this. I love it.
Oh, I love Angelique as a vampire. That was probably one of the first things that turned me on about Dark Shadows. Looking at it and
female vampires,
other teenagers at that point, to see this, to see this.
I do kind of wish she was more dressed like the brides of Dracula and stuff like that. They're like the white, the floaty nighties and.
Well, but you do see later
on
cleavage.
You do see later on she has a white dress with no frills, and it is more like the brides of Dracula. And that I'm thinking
they do got her looking poofy.
Yeah, I just want to see her more floating garment,
like in the Night of Dark Shadows,
kind of.
Yeah, like that. So she's like everything's like the wind. A little bit like she's like doing a Diana Ross concert with like the wind's always blowing on her.
Peppermint Patty commercial.
She did look really good in that movie. They did a good job with her in that movie. I think some of the best images of Lara Parker came out of that movie.
Yeah.
And they are trying to recover the entire movie. They're trying to get the lost footage back, and they're still working on that. There's at least a half an hour.
For which movie?
The Night of Dark Shadows.
Right.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
It was cut from the movie. 38 minutes.
Oh, God, I would love to see the thing in its entirety.
Well, they're trying to do that.
Oh, me too.
But what's his name said he let us know.
Ansel's trying to get that back.
Ansel said as soon as they have it, to let us know.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We probably should reconnect with him soon. So,
by the way,
you should.
Yeah, let's not forget. By the way, the first dress that Angelique wears as a vampire, the black one, which they changed after a couple of days or something. That was originally worn by Diana. And my understanding is that was originally worn by Diana Malay as Laura. And they just had.
I'm gonna have to go look now.
The property department, and they have to be the same size, I guess. Either that or Diana Malay may have given it to Lara Parker. I don't remember.
Probably look different because all those episodes are black and white, and now we're seeing it in color as well.
Yeah. But she had a dark black dress. I remember that Diana Malay had that, and I think that was the same thing that Lara Parker wore. And I wonder why they changed that from black to white, except that maybe they wanted to, and I was discussing this with you guys, maybe they wanted to, portray the angelic look of Angelique, so to speak, as a.
Well, it's virginal, isn't it? I mean, whenever you think of the brides of Dracula, or whenever they're portrayed, that they're always like white flowy numbers.
Well, they probably were virgins, and he just happened to come in and zap them,
Yeah, but it's almost like, because it's like if they're dressed in black is like a thing of evil, isn't it? And white's the thing of sainthoods. And of course, Angelique goes to the white when her feelings for Joe deepen as well. So she's like a young girl in love, isn't she? So it's probably has something to do with that.
Poor Joe.
To be honest, though, I found a lot more sex appeal between Joe and Angelique than I did.
I did too.
Because Joe and Maggie have kind of gone into like,
brother and sister now.
Well, brother and sister are this couple that's been married too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
they're beating a dead horse with that one. It's time to move on, I think.
Yeah, but there is a chemistry between Joe and.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a chemistry between Joe and Maggie in the beginning, but now it's kind of like this old married couple. So now there's this chemistry between Joe and Angelique, which I quite like. I like the dynamics as well. That because Joe's always overbearing in his relationships anyway, isn't he?
Kind
of.
Oh,
I'm the Mr. Good guy.
Well, it's never going to be the same again. It's never going to be
like Carolyn was. I mean, to backtrack sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but to backtrack with Carolyn and Joe, it's like that was like a prearranged marriage thing, and I can see why Carolyn wasn't into Joe, because like if you were forced into something, you automatically want to get out of it, even if you would end up liking the person anyway. So I kind of felt bad for Carolyn because her mother was trying so hard to set her up with him.
But he also smelled a fish as well.
Probably. I mean,
yeah. He was dressed as a lumberjack and smelled a fish.
Oh, come on!
That's terrible.
Now I don't know what he does for work, because now either he's still a fisherman, but now doing it.
Maybe he wears Brute,
or
maybe he wears Brute or Aramis, or one of those.
Brute 5, Fabergé.
Maybe Elizabeth just pays him. Who knows?
Yeah,
I feel bad though. I feel bad that the relationship, for all along we've been seeing this very healthy relationship between Joe and Maggie, and Angelique now has killed it all. She's killed it all, and she's going to kill it all for all time, because Joe is never really going to be the same. We're going to see more later on, but we already see the beginnings of a big. But it makes me kind of wonder how much trust there was, Keith, in this and you can probably comment on this more than I can, but how much trust was there really in this kind of relationship where Joe is jealous of Maggie and what's
Willie
going on? Yeah, and now
what happened to the earrings?
And then and Maggie now is, where the heck is he, and what's going on here? Why the hell doesn't Maggie go to Joe's apartment? I mean, to find out
what the
heck is going on.
Well,
how much trust was there really here, Keith? What do you think?
I mean, as far as I see, as far as Maggie and Joe is, the relationship is kind of bizarre, because the thing is, what you had is something that was quite beautiful and nice.
Yeah.
And then of course, when they went to 1795, we don't know what's going on with these two at the time. But then also, then they disappeared for a while. Then they resurfaced, and then there's this weird dynamic between them where it's like they're boring, and then it's like, and then Joe does this thing where I'm protecting Maggie, but goes so over the top, and it's just like, and he's almost like, how like whenever Maggie goes, "Oh, Pop, don't have a drink, Pop. Oh, Maggie, leave it to yourself. I'm your father." And Joe's kind of adapted that role, where it's like, no matter what Maggie says, he's having to go at her. It's like, and then he and then goes after Willie for whatever reasons, then goes after Adam, which of course gets him hurt.
Well, he goes after Willie because Willie was because they thought Willie was stalking Maggie. But
even after Maggie had a conversation, no, Willie's fine now, Joe, and he still does it.
That's what I'm saying. How much trust was there really in this relationship to begin with?
Well, but there's no trust with the women at all, though, because this is also mirrored the same way with Jeff Clark and Victoria with Barnabas.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
And it's like
Yep.
well, I mean, Victoria's chose you. She's gonna marry you. There's nothing sexual or anything going on between Victoria and Barnabas. You can tell that they're platonic friends. So they're always gonna be platonic friends. And even though, even though Barnabas might be pining for Victoria or stuff like this, but Victoria doesn't feel the same way. So why do you treat her like she's gonna? What do you think she's stupid and she's just gonna like give herself away because someone likes her? And the same thing with Maggie and Joe. I was like, Willie. Maggie's not into Willie whatsoever. She's never going to be sexually enticed by Willie whatsoever.
Right.
So even though Willie might seem a bit creepy or make it seem like he might be interested in her, she's never going to return that affection. So why don't you just let it be and stop being this jealous boyfriend? Now, if it's the other way around with Victoria, in Jeff Clark's case, showed a love interest in Barnabas, or Maggie showing a love interest in Adam or Willie, maybe get jealous because obviously it's like, oh my God, her feelings had changed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a weird dynamic, and it's almost like what you see like in something. It's almost what you do. It's kind of like what you tend to see like in like bar dramas. Is like a woman, a guy will talk to her, and then the man goes, "Oh my God, he's talking to you," and goes beat up the other guy, even though it's like the person just said hi to this woman. This is my woman. The only thing missing is that him hitting her over the head with a bone and dragging her off.
You're a Neanderthal.
So I think the thing that you could take away from this
exactly.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, the thing that you could take away from this, I think that there's an aura of mistrust. There's an aura of mistrust throughout all the, and it's spilling over into the relationships that you believe have trust, bilateral trust between them, with the exception of one thing that you're going to see throughout, and that's the thing with the developing thing with Julia and Barnabas. Barnabas now really is starting to have a friendship. A feeling
finally
of friendship
values her a little bit.
She saved his life. He says it. They dug him out of the coffin. He was buried alive at one point, and
Julia sacrificed her whole life for Barnabas. I mean, she sacrificed a career. She sacrificed whatever kind of home life she had, which we don't really know, but she actually, wherever she was living, she gave that up to be with Barnabas, sort of thing.
She still had a Wincliffe. She didn't really sacrifice her career, but we don't know who she left it in charge of. I don't know.
I wonder if she's still claiming a paycheck from them, a monthly paycheck.
I'll bet she is.
She got a good deal there.
Gonna get Willie a job there.
And get a monthly pay.
She's gonna get Willie a job there at one point.
You're an inmate. We're now gonna make you a domestic staff.
Something I've noticed is that they're not as good at developing relationships when they're so busy focusing on all of the occult elements. It's like either or, because if you've noticed, after every big like supernatural back in time storyline or something, it's like all the energy's drained and all the actors are depleted, so the storylines kind of start off kind of lazy, and not necessarily lazy, it's just the energy is kind of more subdued, so they're trying to remember like what the relationships and what the storylines were before all of that happened, and they're trying to pick up where they left off, but you can see that they're struggling. Yeah, but also like the relationships aren't as strong. Like in the beginning series, all they had were traditional soap opera relationships to focus on. Right. And the minute they started focusing on the supernatural elements, that's where they put all their energy, time, maybe possibly research, like everything went into that. But then when it comes to the relationships of the show, they're weaker elements. Like they're not very good at developing them. And they always feel like older relationships, like after they've been married for 20 years, like they don't develop the way real relationships develop necessarily. I think they've gotten better at that.
Well, I mean, that's exactly the only relationship where the man's actually trusted the woman that we've seen so far in this whole show, so far up to this point, is Roger and Cassandra. Which is Roger probably shouldn't have accepted Cassandra the way he did, you know what I mean? But that's the only one where he like lets her do whatever he wants to. There's like no jealousy or anything like that.
That's like, the other poser though. You've got Louis Edmonds just totally saying, well, this is Cassandra's brother. I'm just going to give him a house by the sea. It's just like, WTF is with that, you know?
Well, even after she's left you,
Mesmerism.
and I'm going to give the brother a house. It's not like Cassandra's still there. I'm going to give the brother a house.
Then we can't forget Jeff. He goes in and finds another dead body that they plan to reanimate. So he starts losing it again.
Well, that's for Eve. That's for Eve, I think. But, oh, by the way, Keith, I just want to say, we don't have to worry about what's been going on with the characters in the present while we went back to 1795. Because if you remember, when they came back, and you were talking about Joe and Maggie, because when they came back to the present, only seconds had passed between 17. So nothing has happened. I mean, it was to say it's everything is as it was, if you want to think.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird because even though it's supposed to have been seconds, everything was supposed to be as it was, but
it was months in 1795, but it was only seconds in the present.
But the problem basically is that when they went back
to the next second, she goes back.
But when they came back to the present, the problem basically is that all the characters were slightly different, even though no time has passed whatsoever.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like
absolutely.
And I think that's because I've watched shows like where actors talk about how they were able to watch what happened before all of this happened, but with Dark Shadows, that's not a possibility because everything's happening live and they don't have access to that like we do now. They didn't have access to prior episodes at the time, so they kind of have to try to remember the best that they can to pick up, and that's so evident when they come back to it. It's like their characters that they played in 1795 are kind of still with those actors, and so you kind of see them trying to get out of the characters they played in 1795 and then go back into their 1960s selves.
No.
Another thing you have to remember is that there's a difference between daytime programming and there's a difference between nighttime programming. Nighttime program, they know there's a certain number of episodes and they plan these out. Like basically it's like before that season ends, you plan out the next season so you know where your scopes are here. Daytime soap operas are different. You plan that like a month in advance. So basically you're running by the seat of your pants and you're playing catch up the whole time. And basically it's like, if this doesn't work, we need to change it really quickly because we can be canceled at a moment's notice. And that's what Dark Shadows was fighting this whole time as well. Every 3 months they were up against the ratings where they could be canceled at a moment's notice.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then it's like, oh, this might not be working. Oh, we're dropping our figures a little bit. Okay, we need to change this really quickly. And that's what they were playing at. And that's what daytime soaps did at that time, basically, is that you had to keep changing. And the thing is like, you're running by the seat of your pants. You didn't plan things out. Like, this is a big storyline. This is what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to plan this like month at a time and see where it goes.
To be fair, though, from what I understand, they used to have meetings, and some of these meetings were like 12, 13 hours on end with the writers. And there were marathon sessions, and they were basically planning far, far ahead, which is why, one of the reasons why I think Shadows worked, because they were so proactive. I mean, they didn't want to, Dan Curtis didn't want to leave anything to chance. And he didn't want any surprises. So the stuff so at this point, they were actually planning what was happening a year from now, during that point. And
but if you look at the first year, I mean, that's the reason why so many story plot lines got dropped, because no one was interested. Oh, like we're dropping. Oh my God, we're going to be canceled. Okay, let's forget about this one. We need something else. Forget about this one. We need something else. And that's what happened in the first year of Dark Shadows. Then of course the ghost happened. It's like, okay, well, we got a bit of peak here, so maybe we need to run with this a little bit. But we still got this storyline that we need to close this off
to get rid of. Yeah, to get rid of.
And that's what it was. By this time we're in the middle of like they found their pace here. They know what they're doing. They've also, if you also notice that within the last 5 episodes that we've done here, if you notice, the pacing is very, very tight as well. They know exactly what their pacing is now as well. Nothing's going on too long. There's no long weeks worth of get on with it either. We haven't experienced that for a long time.
I also think that in terms of acting performances, I think that Robert Rodan came across very strongly in this block. Yeah, he was true. Because now he had some real lines to deal with. It wasn't food, music, and Barnabas. And then
Barnabas.
the mic boom. He's given some dialogue. And he's really and he really is given a chance to emote with it, and his torture about Carolyn, and he's pissed off that Carolyn didn't, he runs towards Carolyn, the pseudo rape scene, so to speak, and then realizes that it isn't what it was. Also, I think there are some very tender scenes between Stokes and Adam, as Stokes has to tell him about the fact that Carolyn doesn't feel the same way. And this is really, this is the other father. You talk about Nicholas parenting Adam. Well, there are two fathers here. There's Stokes also, and it's really, but it's up to Stokes to let Adam know that. And Adam is saying, well, why didn't you? At one point, Adam is saying, well, why didn't you get married or something? He doesn't say that, but there's really this feeling. There's really an uncomfortable that Thayer David plays it so well, because Stokes is a bachelor and has never had and we don't know what Stokes' dating experience was, what kind of relationship Stokes had. Stokes is really a celibate professor. And he has to explain to Adam. He has to explain the facts of life to Adam. It's very. I don't know. Just something very tender about it. I like the way those scenes were written. What do you think, Keith?
I think that basically, I think what happens with Dark Shadows and what we're seeing at the moment is that I think at the beginning stages, and when it was just a soap opera and not many, it wasn't hitting the radar that for a lot of people. So you kind of got day players coming in, and it's like this is a job for them. They're just coming in for the day, or they're coming in for a couple of weeks or whatever. Once the Barnabas 1795 storyline happened, and all of a sudden they became a ratings winner, then we started getting actors who came in and they knew that this was a phenomenon, and it's like they knew that this was a big show. And so I think that what we got was the writing became above par, and everyone, I think, so everyone took their job seriously, and it was almost like we're taking our jobs very, very seriously now, that we're going to make this work. And there was this, and that's how I think, like, Robert Rodan. I mean, the thing is, if this was at the beginning, would he have done a whole character style, like children who have like learning needs and all this other stuff to play the part of Adam? Probably not.
He studied children's development,
and because he came in after. I mean, this is when all of a sudden this show exploded like no one's ever seen for a daytime soap. This is General Hospital in the middle of the Laura Merritt storyline at this time. Yeah. And and if you notice, it's like, even the day players are coming in, and like, they might be, the actors are coming in for like one scene and you'll never see them again. Even they've stepped up their game. If you notice, there's this whole, and it's like, and everyone's formed together, and there's this great big theater group, and they're all joined together, and we're all in this together. And you can tell that every single one of them is actually enjoy. You can see the joy that they have doing their job as well, with the way they portray. The tender moments are becoming they're tender moments because they're not just acting them, they're actually now feeling them. We have actors actually feeling their lines and knowing their characters, and they've developed their characters, and this is what I'm going to do. And we got a lot of that going on, I've noticed, and that's been going on for a while now, which I think is why Dark Shadows is remembered for the way it is now, other than other soap operas.
Very true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, what's kind of funny, I don't know how much Tom follows. I know Tom sometimes probably follows the soaps, maybe not so much now, but the people. But I remember General Hospital started a show called Port Charles several years back, and they tried to go with the vampire theme.
Yes.
And it just didn't work.
I don't think they did it as sexy enough. I've seen some of those Port Charles vampire scenes.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it sexy enough. They didn't do the bite stuff as much. Another soap opera that tried was Passions.
Yes, they did. Yes.
And it's very interesting. So Juliette Mills played the witch in Passions.
Yes.
And did you know, and I didn't know this, I found this out recently, that many times, must have been the Dark Shadows fan as one of the writers, Juliette Mills played this 100-year-old witch. She was hundreds of years old, and she referred to her ex-boyfriend, Barnabas Collins. Yeah. And she referred to that on Passions. and that was and I would like to see more of that sometime. Strange Paradise was the other one back then that, and I think Art Wallace had a little into that. That was a Canadian soap opera that was on for 175 episodes, and that was more into the voodoo stuff, and that was on at the same time Dark Shadows and syndication, but it never picked up because I think Dark Shadows had so many elements into it, whereas perhaps the others were, I think, more peripheral in the way they developed.
Right.
In the way they develop,
I don't think if anybody's really going to get that magic back again. You know?
Sunset Beach tried it a little bit as well, didn't they? They kind of done a little supernatural thing as well.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there has been a couple gay soap operas on. What was it? The Dante's Cove, which is basically a gay version of Dark Shadows. That's
like Dark Shadows on Fire Island.
Yeah, it's a bit like that with a lot of sex. Like
is that with males?
Man on man sex.
Is that with males or with females as well?
Male on male and female on female. So
interesting.
But you know, it had Tracy Scoggins in it from Dynasty. She was in it, and yeah, I mean, everyone looked very beautiful, but the acting wasn't great. So,
where was that on Dante's Cove?
That was on what was that gay channel that
I know you're talking about? Oh,
that's RuPaul started on.
Yes.
Logo.
Seriously?
Logo. Logo channel. Yeah, it's Logo.
Is that on the internet now? Do they have that on the
Dante's Cove, I believe you can find it on
probably on Tubi. I'll bet you a chocolate donut.
Yeah, probably Tubi, but yeah.
Interesting.
But I mean, Dark Shadows it's basically given birth to a lot of ideas. I mean, you can see the soap opera aspect. I mean, it gave birth to Buffy and Supernatural. That's the reason why they're all kind of soap opera-y and
a lot of modern day shows have their roots to Dark Shadows was the seminal thing that started it all.
Vampire Diaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. They have back in time things too. So
True Blood as well.
I love True Blood. I love that series.
True Blood was the one that I think was most successful because that really borrowed a lot of Dark Shadows elements.
Dante's Cove is on Hulu. For anybody who wants to watch.
No kidding. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I have Hulu. Interesting.
One guy's hung like a donkey and it'll kind of scar you. So
how long did Dante's Cove last?
It lasted 3 seasons.
3 seasons. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, October 7th, 2005 to 2007. And now that everybody has brought all of that too much information, I'm definitely going to have to go check it out.
Me too.
And on that note, let's go to our character favorites and least favorites. So, starting with Mickey, who's your favorite character and who's your least favorite character of Dark Shadows in this plot?
I don't know. Obviously, I haven't seen them yet. Okay, my least favorite character, and I hate doing this to her, is probably Vicky. And I feel really bad for her because they don't give her any story. They just keep putting her as, like I was saying, the perils of Pauline, the poor waif that just twists like a leaf of the wind. They do everything to her. And, you know, I don't blame her for probably leaving the show because she could have been a good, mean vampire if they probably just let her try. I don't know why they didn't let her branch out.
She'd agree with you. She wanted to be a vampire, and that's why she wouldn't come back.
Even if she was possessed.
Yeah, something like that.
Something.
Yeah, that would work, you know? I mean, I just feel bad for her because they just kind of boxed her in and pigeonholed her into this, you know, poor save me kind of, you know, the human being I'm surprised.
You're in the headlights.
I know. I'm surprised they didn't tie her to the railroad tracks yet and get some big mustache.
That's coming up. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, well, it's just like you must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent, you know, that kind of thing. But they've got
Penelope Pitstop.
Penelope Pitstop. There you go. But I mean, as far as my favorite actor, I'd have to say I'm gonna have to go with Joe because they finally got him away from Maggie, and he can act instead of, like you were saying, he's the savior of everybody, and he's the big, go-to man, to put all the, lumberjack into saving women and everything else. But he's being very, what's the word I want to use? He's vulnerable, and he doesn't know why he's like this, and he's begging, like Maggie to keep him in her house. And, she tries to stop him, but he doesn't stay in the house, does he? He's just like, well, that was a stupid thing to ask her anyway, because he's going to leave. But I mean, it shows a different side of him being vulnerable and scared and, under somebody else's control. I kind of liked how they at least let him, try something different. Unlike poor Vicky gets stuck being kidnapped again.
What about yourself, Jesse? Favorite actor and least favorite actor of this block?
I mean, I really got a kick out of Joan Bennett playing this.
She was good. She really was.
Different version of herself. It was so funny because you see her playing Elizabeth's daughter, then you see her playing Naomi Collins, which she does a phenomenal job at being like this vulnerable, regal kind of woman who doesn't really have much to do except drink sherry, but then still, under the headlights or whatever, trying to help Vicky, escape her trial as best as she can, but she can't. And then seeing the death of Barnabas, or, thinking that he's dead and then committing suicide, especially after Sarah dies as well. She just feels like she's lost everything, and then not having that loving husband. And then all of a sudden you see her, as crazy Joan Bennett, Elizabeth's daughter, and she's just so funny. I don't know. I know it's not meant to be funny, but it's just so funny hearing her talk about death.
The casket things, like, that's my casket. No, that's my casket.
They left you here alone to die.
Yeah.
I mean, just her repeating that over and over again. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. I know, exactly. And she was so convinced. She's like, don't lie to me. Julia's dead. Julia's dead. Don't lie to me. I know you're tricking me. But my least favorite is probably Harry. I don't know. I know they don't give him much to do, but he always just kind of plays like this kind of scummy character. And it's not the actor necessarily, but I'm also not a huge fan. I'm sorry to say that, but
poor guy.
I have a hard time getting invested in anything he plays.
Well, they don't give him
I don't know.
very much.
So now that we know that Jesse's racist against ginger people, what about you, Tom? Who's your favorite character?
Well,
I'm part ginger.
Well, I'm going to go with the least favorite first, and that's the mother and son team of Clarice Blackburn and Craig Slocum as Mrs. Johnson and Harry.
It is bad.
I think that they didn't give Clarice Blackburn enough to do this time, except for her opening doors and looking in the bedrooms and land's sakes and so forth.
She does deliver a note, though.
What's that?
She does get to deliver a note.
Yes. Isn't that nice? They gave her something to do. One of my friends used to say that. Well, they gave Joan Bennett a lot to do. She opened doors, so you've got that, and Harry Johnson. Well, this time there's a thing of taking the knife away from Adam.
Yes.
And that's another thing I remember. Adam tried to kill himself in this one.
That's right.
And I thought this was, of course, it was a silly scene because you could clearly see that Robert Rodin is not stabbing his stomach, although he pretends to. But you do. But there's a thing with. But once again, aside from they didn't really give Harry Craig Slocum a lot to do, and his acting was kind of, and I just thought his acting was kind of wooden, and he's really there for filler, and you can see it. So those, and it's unfortunate they didn't get, because Clarice Blackburn is so marvelous in other areas.
She really is when she has something.
Yeah, especially.
I mean, she's
Abigail.
funny, she's serious.
She was
everything.
Wonderful. No, she was.
They give her a makeover.
A great range as Abigail, and even as Mrs. Johnson, with the funny comic relief, and they didn't really give her a lot. Now, for best actor, I would. What's the matter, Jesse? You almost keeled over. What was that? What was the matter?
I was thinking of a prior line that she said to the police officer when the cannery whistle blows at noon. That to him is a sign that it's time for lunch.
Yeah. They don't talk about the cannery anymore.
That was the
No, they
best,
don't. No, I think they
I
talked
know
about
that was
it once.
the best
briefly.
line they ever gave her.
I think Roger went to
Absolutely.
work. Roger went to work and never came back, so we haven't seen
Yeah.
him since he went to work.
For best, I would say it's a toss-up between, well, again, Robert Rodan. I think, to me, Robert Rodan was, I think, the best in this. Of course, Humphrey Allen Estrado has his moments, but I would say Robert Rodan, because really now they flesh the character out, them giving him lines, and he's really doing very well with them, and he's really showing the anguish. The unrequited love for Carolyn, the revenge against Barnabas, on a multivariate, a lot of multivariate levels, the scenes between him and Vicky, which is really him because Vicky's got a gag over her mouth, so she really doesn't have a lot to say. So it's all him. And and he is and he really handles that. May he rest in peace. Robert Rodan handled that well. Honorable mention, I think, goes to Thayer David as Professor Stokes, because once again he's coming up with they're writing great lines for him, and the tender moments between him and Adam, where he tries to explain the facts of life to Adam, and you can see Thayer David's actor portrayal and the uncomfortableness with the Bachelor having to explain a father-like connotation to Adam, who he realizes also is being, and he doesn't know why Adam is going over to the dark side, and he can't figure it out, and he's trying to find out why, and he's like, and Adam doesn't want to tell him. And
whose brain did he get? Did anybody ever?
Whose brain did Adam get?
Yes.
An infant's brain, apparently.
It's supposed to be a genius brain, by the way, because I think it's kind of mentioned that he was supposed to have a high IQ. According to Adam, according to Dr. Lang's notes,
that was mentioned.
It was, yes, Dr. Lang's notes. Julia's reading, or Barnabas, I think it was Julia's reading Dr. Lang's notes, and it's and either Julia's reading it, or somebody starts to read it, or maybe Adam is reading it also, but it talks about the fact that it was supposed to be a genius, or maybe, no, you know who it was? It was Roger Davis. Roger Davis was sneaking around in the old house.
Yeah.
He saw the notes. So he's starting to read now, and he's reading from the notes that a genius brain was required in an Olympic body or something like that. So it was Roger Davis is Jeff Clark that's doing that. So, but anyway, the bottom line is that I think Rodan was the best, and give Thayer David his Stokes honorable mention. How about you, Keith?
Well, my favorite character is Angelique. I like the vampire. I like her being knocked down. I think, and I like the fire that she's given to Joe is really good as well. It makes me excited to see her. So I really like that.
Wait till you see her with others. See if you think there's fire with Joe, and I don't want to give it away. But
I mean, if you can show sex appeal and lace and puffiness, I mean, yeah, you got something going on.
Yeah. She's just a stunning woman anyway.
She exuded it. She exuded it, and probably still does. But later on, you're going to see how this plays. And they really did it to the hilt. Let's put it that way.
My least favorite has to be Mrs. Johnson. And the thing, to be honest, I do think that they missed the trick here, because I do think that they should have got her son to look like Anthony Perkins from Psycho.
Yeah.
So, because with that wig on, she does look like Mrs. Bates.
And
then, yes, she does. She does.
And then you could have her son coming in going, "Mom, but there's blood. There's blood." Oh, Norman. But yeah, I mean, they need to. She's kind of getting swept away to the sidelines a little bit, and it's kind of sad because they have a huge asset there, and an asset that we've seen with Abigail, as you said before, which was a fantastic character. You hated her so much, but she was fantastic. And some of the zingers that we get from Mrs. Johnson, and
They wasted her. They wasted her this time.
And even when she, she opens the door for Julia because Julia forgot her keys and wakes her up. There was not even a one-liner. She could have said something like, "Oh," or she could have said something that would have been funny and exciting. But there's like, "Oh, you got your keys. Oh, why did you wake me up?" It's kind of like just kind of dull sort of thing. So, but that's my favorite or my least favorite. So now we're going to talk about our overall impressions of this block. Starting with you, Tom. What's your overall impressions of this block?
Very strong. We now have plots proceeding. And again, to reiterate, we've got Adam kidnapping Vicky. Adam being influenced by Nicholas, the counterplay between Nicholas and Stokes in trying to get Adam onto either side. Jeff being engaged to Vicky is the soap opera plot, and the Barnabas. Now Barnabas, I think, was he buried alive in this block, or was he buried alive in the last block? But the thing that I want to talk about is that in this block, you really see what will permeate throughout the show, in that while a lot of people in Dark Shadows don't trust each other, and there's this mistrust which seems to be almost Jungian in terms of a collective unconscious which is running through the show. But now you're seeing a growing sense of trust that Barnabas has towards Julia as a friend, especially because she and Willie saved his life. I think also what they were talking about, what Julie and Willie were talking about, what will we do without Barnabas? And that kind of extends to the show. But now already it's kind of resolved. But the fact is that Barnabas is now really convinced that Julia is there for him. He knows that Julia cares for him. He even says it at one point, but he can't return the feeling. And she knows it, but she'll stick with him through thick and thin. And of course Angelique the vampire, which is one of the sexiest vampire roles on the show. Tom Jennings coming. The introduction of Briscoe is Tom Jennings the vampire, who's the titillator, the male young titillating vampire, going after the May-December relationship with Julia, just kind of like Harold and Maude, if you remember that movie back then. As Keith is smiling as I say that, and so you've got that kind of thing, and the real rip-offs. Curtis is ripping off from Bride of the Monster, Bride of Frankenstein, Brides of Dracula, the Return of the Vampire, all these old horror films, and you've got elements of that in this block. Very interesting to see, and it's going to get even more exciting.
And what about yourself, Jess? What are your overall thoughts of this book?
I mean, I thought it was a very strong response to the 1795 storyline because, sometimes after these really big drama, I mean, this was the first one, so I'm kind of referring to having seen Dark Shadows the whole way through. But sometimes after, like, they have these hefty storylines, they do kind of run out of ideas, and it can be kind of slow to get back up on track. But I think even though there were, like, as far as like bringing the characters back, I think some ways they struggled, and the relationships aren't as strong as some of the storytelling for the supernatural elements. And not to say that there aren't strong relationships, because there are really interesting dynamics, such as with, like Carolyn and even like with Carolyn and Barnabas, like their friction, because she wants to return back to her normal life. And then with Carolyn and then Adam, that's really interesting. And then obviously John Bennett's character is really interesting and funny. And then just so many different like drastic changes from 1795 story to what the heck is going on now. It's so like there's so much to work with, so much to talk about. I don't even feel like we're going to get down to all the fun details with, with this, because there's so much to talk about, so much happens, and it's not necessarily even a bad thing. It's just, there's so much to work with. So I do think it was a very strong response to the 1795 storyline, because you can see how, like, a domino effect, it's trickling on into like everyone's life. It's not just affecting Victoria, it's also affecting Roger after seeing the portrait, which somehow leads him to marrying Cassandra, who's really Angelique. And somehow after Victoria comes back from this, it's like opened a portal to bringing other characters from that time back. Somehow it like wakens the spirits of Angelique, who's able to come back. And, all of these different characters are introduced because of Victoria being able to go back in time, which it's so interesting. And he's like looking at her portrait, thinking, not really thinking, but I don't know, subconsciously he's Joshua. I think he's talking to Countess, which is so interesting. He's talking to Julie as if she's the Countess Dupre. Victoria's watching, and it's like, I was just talking to him about how it wasn't just my imagination, and he thinks it's a mass hallucination, but then he doesn't even realize he's doing it. And then when Julia brings it up to him, he's like, that's very interesting indeed, and just walks away like nothing happened, doesn't care at all. It's almost as if he's totally under Angelique's spell before she even comes on the scene as Cassandra, and then he's still in that spellbound mode by the time that they elope, I guess. So it's very interesting. Like it feels very dreamlike how everything just happens.
And what about yourself, Vix?
I agree with Jesse on some of that. Like, there is a lot going on in this. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it so much that I went beyond what I was supposed to watch, because I wanted to see what happened, like typical soap star stuff. I mean, if I could sit here and watch General Hospital, I mean, I record it, and because I do not want commercials and anything else. I just want to get through it and watch my stories. But this had the same effect. I mean, because I don't remember a lot of these. And so it's kind of like watching with fresh, eyes and ears again. And I finally got excited about, I was kind of, it was kind of dragging out for me a little bit. And then when this all happened and they brought Angelique back as a vampire, it's like, all right, things are picking up. And you got, people are getting bitten. The supernatural is abounding all over the place, which is what, which is what's so great about Dark Shadows. Whoever, thought to do a supernatural soap opera. So it's definitely set trends and goals for people in the future to come by and pick up kind of where they left off. But I enjoyed how, I guess I didn't enjoy so much Nicholas browbeating Angelique, because she's such a strong character, and it was kind of hard seeing her subdued and under his thumb, where it's basically she's allowed to only go get her dinner when he allows her to, call Joe or whatever. So she has to set up, an appointment with her meal ticket, literally. And she does that. And I don't get the clothes at first when it comes to that, but I mean, and she looks good in anything. It was green, really, but she's still stunning in just about anything they put on her. And it's just so good to have the old Angelique per se back, because, she's always been one of my favorites. And like I said, you got Vicky, the Perils of Pauline again. And, there's no Sam, but Maggie's still around. And you see already that there's something going to be happening, not between her and Joe, and that other things are going to come to fruition with different relationships down. You see the setup coming. So I think this block was excellent. I thought it was strong. And I think it's going to be a great precursor for things to come.
Well, don't worry, by the way, about Angelique staying under Nicholas's thumb, because we're going to see later on that you can't keep a good vampire down or a good witch down, and she's not a good witch, but she is going to she's going to show herself pursuant to women's lib that was also happening at the time.
Because he's pissing me off.
Oh, you're going to see.
Don't be messing with my girl Angelique.
You're going to see Angelique come to the fore, and they're all going to root for her as she and also, and like I said, it's going to get even better. It's really picking up to the point where when the height of of the show is really going to be maybe a year and a half from now, but we're going to cover that sooner. But in terms of the show itself, it was a year and a half from now, from that at that point, when it was really, really enjoying. But so things are getting really good now.
As far as my views on this block is, I think this is a very strong block. I really enjoyed it. I like how in this block, all the characters' personalities have changed slightly. So we're getting different versions of these characters, different Joe, a different Angelique, a different Barnabas, a different Julia, a different Carolyn, a different Adam. Victoria, unfortunately, is pretty much the staple of the program. So we don't really get to see a lot of growth with her. Yeah. But overall, though, we do get to see a lot of different sides of these characters that we've spent so much time with, which I quite enjoyed. I thought it was very, very, very strong. I like the chances they take. I like the idea that Julia might get her leg over with someone younger, which is quite nice to see. And
yes, finally.
Yeah, and I love seeing a different side of Angelique. I liked having a vulnerable side of Angelique that wasn't for her own purposes, that someone's got her in her thumb. And I love the karma that they're doing. That, and all this kind of feels like a bit of karma. It's almost like, Joe, you've gone over and above, so therefore, because of karma, you're now going to be the weak person. Angelique, you've been a horrible person with all these powers, so due to karma, you're now going to be the weak. You're going to be the person who's going to be underneath someone else's power. Yeah. And I quite like that. And it does feel a bit like karma sort of thing. It's like, Julia, you're always meddling with other people's stuff. Well, now we're going to meddle with you. So this is the karma that's brought on.
I think it would have been very interesting, by the way, and they never did this on the show. But if Julia had become a vampire on the show, she would have gone after Barnabas, I think. And
probably so.
And that would have been and the turnaround would have been very, very interesting to see. They didn't do it that way. They actually did do it in the Laura Parker books, which we may decide to discuss at one point or other. She did 4 novels. And that's another little sidelight, but I agree with all of you. I think there's no doubt that this is an extremely strong block, and it just continues stuff that really started to pick up around the 1795. They did the transition back to the present very well.
So that brings us to the end of the Literary License Podcast, episodes 549 to 570. Our next Dark Shadows, which will be at the end of June, will be episodes 571 to 591. And of course, next week, we'll be continuing our classic novels with Little Women by Louisa May Alcott and the film starring Katharine Hepburn from 1933 and Joan Bennett. And of course, we'll be doing our 2-for-1, which will be our next month is our Salute to Women month. So we'll be doing Bewitched. And of course, the Strong Women with that, where we start season 2, episodes 1 through 4. And of course, our double feature will be Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and The Incredible Shrinking Woman, starring Lily Tomlin and Jay Wagner, about female rights and how much too many chemicals can do to one person's body. So that's will be goodbye to myself and goodbye, Tom.
Take care, all of you, and it was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you guys next month.
And good night, Jesse.
Have a good night, folks.
Good night, Vicky.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
And to Dinah Manoff, I got your email, and yes, I will marry you. Good night.
I need a woman, and I need her by my side. I need a woman. Yeah, I don't want her to know that I love her. I want her in my life. Ooh, come on, baby, don't be shy. Ooh, almost tell me you'll be mine. 'Cause what you'll get is what you'll see. And what I am is what I'll be. 'Cause I'm a man and I've got some needs. Whoa, something that I've gotta squeeze. Yeah, something I can hold on tight. I need a woman in the day. I need a woman that night, a woman that night, a woman that days, a woman that cares, a woman in my life, a woman in my life. I need a woman.